Welcome back everybody to Outdoor Power Tech. Today I'm going to be showing you how to adjust your valves on your Briggs engine. This is a Briggs 20 horsepower. The engine that we're working on today came in on the guy ran it with no oil and both connecting rods broke. So one of the procedures to get top dead center on this is to put a wooden dowel into your cylinder and turn the engine by hand until it comes up and you get top dead center. We're not going to be able to do that on this engine because both connecting rods are broke, so the pistons are not going to be going up and down. But I can still talk you through it and show you another way you can do it also. There's two ways you can do this. So I'm going to show you and talk you through the right way, and then show you how I've been doing it and pretty much how everybody else has been doing it. I've been doing this for 10 years and setting valves the way I'm going to show y'all. But you're going to need a 10 millimeter. You're going to need a filler gauge. You're going to need a 1/2 inch. And that's going to be on this particular one. Some of y'all's may vary. All the Briggs are going to be 10 millimeter on this though to pull your valve cover off. And then we're going to have to use a torque driver. Okay, let's get you down here closer. Okay, when you pull your valve cover off, you might want to put something underneath it because it's going to be on your tractor, and you might want to put something underneath here because you're going to have oil that's going to drip out of here. This engine does not have no oil in it because the guy ran it with no oil, so it has no oil in it. There was very little in it left, but most of it's out of there. But let's go ahead and take this off. You got 4 of these, and I would suggest, I mean, you can use a small impact like this to take it off, but when you go to put it back on, use a driver, a ratchet, so you don't cross thread the stuff. Okay, let's pull that off. Okay, you're gonna have, these are your 2 valves right here. These are your rocker arms, and then you have your push rods right here. Your top one right here is your intake. It will have aluminum push rod, and I'll show you that. Let's go ahead and show you that right now. Maybe you can see in here. Okay, you see the color of this? Silver, that's aluminum. This one down here is steel, which steel is harder than aluminum, so that's on your exhaust valve side. So that's, you're going to need to know this whenever you set your valves. Most V-twin engine Briggs are between 4 and 6 thousandths of an inch on the filler gauge. Sometimes they vary depending on certain engines and their specs, but most Briggs twin cylinders are 4 to 6 thousandths. But you're going to want to know your intake, where it's at. This is your intake valve. This is your exhaust valve. Okay, so let's get us back down here. Let me get you out here so you can see these rocker arms moving up and down. Okay, to get top dead center, which, like I said, the piston don't move up and down on this one, but you're gonna want to get a wooden dowel like this or plastic, and make sure your spark plugs that are both sides, because you don't want this thing to have any compression, because you won't be able to turn it by hand. But right now I have my hand on the top of the engine, right here, just turning the engine like this, like so. Okay. Bring it back down here so you can see. Sorry about that. And you're going to want to look at your rocker arms here too. So you're going to put your wooden dowel in here, and you're going to turn the engine while you push on this. Don't push hard, okay? You're not going to mess nothing up with the wooden dowel, but you make sure you have a good one that has no chips on or anything, because you don't want that to break off into the engine. But you put this in here and you turn top of your engine, and you'll feel the dowel go into the engine, and then you'll feel it come back up. Once it gets all the way back up and you feel it start to slightly go down, I would say like a 1/4 inch, stop right there, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to want to fill your rockers right here. If both of them are loose, you're at top dead center. Right now, I'm not at top dead center because you see our intake valve is tight and our exhaust valve is loose. So I'm not at top dead center. Even though this piston is not going up and down, these rocker arms and push rods are still working as it was intended to on the cam on the inside. So all this is still working as normal. So what I would do, again, if one is loose and one is tight, put your dowel back in there and it will be right up here at the very top, because you have it here at the top. Turn the engine, it'll go back down to the engine, and then when it comes back up again to the very top, just turn it a quarter of a turn and that should be top dead center. Let's see here. So both rocker arms are loose. Okay. Then you'd go on with the procedures I'm going to show you here in a minute, how to set these. That's how you would do it with a wooden dowel to get top dead center so you can set these. Now I'm going to show you the way I do it, and pretty much the way everybody else does it. And I'll explain to you why this works. Okay? What most of us do, let me zoom back in here again. What most of us do is we turn the engine over until, can you see this valve rocker arm pushing in? We do that until it's all the way down. I'm gonna turn this again this way. Okay. I think I got one too tight. Yeah, I got one too tight right here when I put it back together earlier. All right. Sorry, I had this engine apart, diagnosing what was wrong with it. Okay, so you're going to turn your engine. You see this valve closing, and this one's still up. You want it at that position where this one's still up and this one's still down. And then you would set your clearance right here while this one's up. And then after you set this one, you'll turn the engine over till this one's pushed down. And I think this one's okay. And then you set your adjustments on this one. And the reason why this works this way is you got a cam right here and you have your lobes, okay? And you want to set your adjustments on your valve when it's on off of the lobe. That's where you'd set your adjustment. So then when the lobe comes around, it will lift it'll push your push rod up and your rocker, and it will push the valve in. So if you turn the engine over where one of them's pushed all the way down, then your other side is on the small side of the lobe, if that makes sense. So that means that the valve is completely closed. And then when you turn your engine over again, and then this valve closes, when this lobe gets to here, this valve's open and this valve's closed, and you would set the gap. So that's the easy way to do it. So the specs on this engine is 4 to 6 thousandths. And if you need to look up, if you just want to make sure you're perfectly clear, on one of your valve covers, you'll have your spec, model and spec number and everything on the valve cover. You really can't, there it is right there, see? And it's usually on cylinder 1 valve cover, the one that has no hole in it, because the other valve cover has a hole in it for your vacuum line for your fuel pump. So that's where you would find it at. It's usually on cylinder 1, the left side. Okay, let's get us over here. turn this till this valve closes. All right, that's closed. Now we're going to set the clearance on here. So what we're going to want to do here is get your 1/2" wrench and put on here. And then your torque driver. And you're going to want to hold this still. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see. With the torque driver, you're going to want to just hold it still and break loose your locking nut right here, okay? And we'll have to make sure it's loose. And then with your filler gauge, we're going to do, so it's 4 to 6 thousandths. So I like to do 5 thousandths. And you're going to want to do this right here. Let me get this zoom in. You're going to want to put your filler gauge in here and see how that's just super loose. We're going to want that to have just a little bit of drag on it. So pull your locking nut back off of it a good bit so you can have enough room to screw in your torque right here. Put this in here and screw this in until you just have a little bit of drag like that, okay? What I like to do is just get a little bit snug, not too snug. You want it to be able to move. What I like to do is just get a little bit snug to where I can still move it, but it'll hold itself in place like that. Because our tolerance is between 5 to 7 thousandths. So if that's a little bit tight, but we can still move it, we still know that we're not tighter than 4 thousandths. So we'd be between 4 and 5 thousandths, even though we're using a 5 thousandths filler gauge. So I like to get it where it'll just hang on its own. Like that, but still have play in it. See, I can still move that. And it can be tricky to do. Sometimes I do it by hand like this. All right. Then get your locking nut screwed down on it. Can you see that locking nut, what I'm doing? Over here at the locking nut. Let's get you over here. Make sure this still got play in it. Okay. And then I screw in my locking nut till it's a little bit tight. Check to see if it still has a little bit of play. It does. And it can hold itself. Okay. Then you want to get your wrench on your 1/2" locking nut. Put your torque driver in here. Don't turn your torque driver no more. Hold it completely still and then turn your wrench righty-tighty to tighten up that locking nut. And then you're going to want to get it really snug without moving, without turning this middle driver, okay? You're going to want to get that pretty snug. Let's see what we got here. Okay, we still got play in it. We still got good drag. And it can hold itself up, but I can still move it. And this is a 5 thousandths. Let me get my 4 thousandths because our tolerance is between 4 and 5 thousandths. So if we go for 4, which is smaller, thinner, and you can see we got, that has perfect drag on it, perfect drag. You don't want to go no more tighter than 4 because then you'll have your valves opening too soon on you. But I mean, that's a 4. And just to show you that I don't have it too tight, let's go to, here's our 5, and here's our 6. 6 is on the max side. And if I push, I can get a 6 in if I push pretty hard, but Go back to our 4, or no, our 5, which is in the center. We got just the right amount of drag on that. I mean, it's a little snug for 5/1000ths, but this is the center of the tolerance that they allow for. The 4 is really, really smooth. So that's our intake side. And what we'll do is rotate the engine over until the intake goes all the way down. And then we'll do the same process on our exhaust. Can y'all still see what I'm doing here? Break this free here. And these were way out of whack because I pulled the engine apart and put everything back together and just tightened everything down. That's why these 2 valves were opening and closing way too soon. So our intake is pushed all the way down. We got our exhaust here. We got our, let's see here, our 5/1000ths. That's super tight, so I'm going to unscrew the center torque right here. I'm going to screw it in. If it gets to a point where you can't screw this in anymore and you need a more, back off on your locking nut here. This locking nut right here, okay? I mean, it don't have to be perfect, but you want it pretty close. You want it where it has enough play in it. And you don't want it so tight that it's opening your valve too early, and you don't want it so sloppy that you can hear your rocker arm slapping. So that feels good to me right there. I want to tighten my locking nut down. Let me double check this. And when you check it too, you might not want to have your wrench hanging on here, because sometimes that can put just a little bit of pressure on it and make it tighter, because it's wanting to twist your rocker arm, if that makes sense. So that feels really good to me. So remember, when you put your torque driver in that center and you have it exactly where you want to hold that torque driver completely straight and don't turn it. And then you tighten down on your locking nut. And don't go crazy on that. That has perfect drag on it. Let's see what it feels like if I go up to a 6,000. These things are so old, the numbers are wearing off of it. So 6,000, I can push it in there, but it's super tight. So exactly where we want it at on there. Let's do a 4. Okay, that has a little bit of drag on it, but we set it at 5, so, and 5 has perfect drag on it. Perfect drag. The way I can explain it to you, how you gonna want this drag to feel, because I've been doing this for years and years and years. The way I can explain it to you is, if you get a piece of paper, let's pretend like this is the filler gauge and this is your rocker arm, and you put in your filler gauge in here. Squeeze down on this tight to where you can't pull this. I'm not talking about squeeze real tight and pull as hard as you can with your muscles. Just with your fingers, just hold this a little bit tight, just like that, and then pull on this to where you can't pull it. Now let off this just a little bit until you can feel like a drag. That's what you're gonna want to feel on your filler gauge, a drag. Now if it's like that, it's too loose. So tighten your finger up just a little bit until you feel a little bit of drag. And where you wanting to feel that motion at, or that drag, is the hand that's pulling the filler gauge, if that makes sense. Well, we could have used a filler gauge. Same difference on here. So if you're doing like that and it's just sloppy, that's not right. If it's like that and you can't pull it through your finger, and you want that muscle memory on this hand, then that's too tight. But if you release just a little bit and got just a little bit of drag, that's what you want to feel, okay? All right, we got both of those set. The next thing you're gonna want to do is clean your valve cover up real good. This one's not cleaned up yet because I'm gonna be doing a full engine rebuild on. Clean it up really nice and neat. Clean it off with some alcohol or carburetor cleaner so there's no oil on it. Do the same thing around the edge of where your valve cover goes on. Clean it up real nice. Make sure you get all, you'll have oil down here that builds up. You're gonna want to clean all that off that ledge down there with a paper towel before you spray it with anything to clean it up further. Get it real good and dry. Get this real good and dry and clean. Once they dry, get your gasket sealer and put on here, or if you order the gaskets, put your gasket on here. I just use a gasket sealer now because this is a brand new engine. You see Briggs used a gasket silicone sealer, high temp. I haven't seen any come in my shop new from Briggs with gaskets on it in a long time. But I'll show you what I use, and I'll put a link on it. I get this on eBay. I was using Permatex black high temp for a long time, but I found this stuff on eBay, and this stuff is strong. And I'll put a link on it, and it seals up good and it's hard. I've used it on a lot of stuff that regular high temp sealer doesn't work on. But okay, well, I hope this helps somebody today, and hope that the way I explained it helped you. Like I said, there's a lot of guys do it a lot of different ways, and there's only two ways to really do it, but I usually do it this way. If I'm doing a full engine rebuild and taking my time on it, and you know I'm doing, it's like 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm really making the engine new again, I'll do it with the real wooden dowel and get it completely at top dead center and do it that way. But if one comes in my shop and we adjusting the valves, we do it the way I just showed you how to do it, and same difference. But I hope this helps somebody today. Please leave a like, thumbs up, and share my video. And until next time, we'll see you.